Years ago, I did a small-scale experiment to determine the size of opening that a squirrel could not enter, and the perfect safe size ended up being 1 7/8". At the time, all I could find was copper pipe that was 1.5 inches. It worked really well and kept the squirrels out. Copper is now very expensive, and the 1.5 inch size is a bit too small for some birds. Then a bunch of years later, I made one out of fence post that was just under 1 7/8 inches in diameter. I recently discovered another method where I can get the hole size to exactly 1 7/8 inches. There's this company called Send Cut Send. They have over 150 materials to choose from for your project, including carbon fiber, all kinds of steel, plastics, and plywood. They use laser, water jet, and CNC. They will also bend, countersink, insert hardware, anodize, plate, powder coat, and tumble. I contacted the company and they were gracious enough to supply me with the parts needed for this project at no cost. I chose to have them laser cut from 304 grade stainless steel. As you can see, these parts are beautiful. All of the laser cuts are precision. All of these parts come deburred, but the laser cutting is so precise that the edges are ever so slightly sharp. So it's best to take a piece of emery cloth or sandpaper and dull the edges. And this is just to make sure that no birds or squirrels are going to be harmed. And before I forget, if you want to build one of these, I'll have everything linked in the description under the video, and it'll bring you right to these parts from Send Cut Send. So first off, I'll show you how to easily make a mount so we can fit it on a pole when we're finished. In a lot of cases, people will take a block of wood, drill 1.5 inch hole, and that's the mount. The problem is that it's too expensive to buy a fence post just to get a short little block. And in most cases, to get the hole nice and straight, you're going to need a drill press. So here's a much cheaper and easier method. First, measure the pole that you're going to be using. Then cut a piece of wood that's the same size. Cut 4 pieces of 2x4 that are 4 inches long. Take the pieces of 2x4 and surround the wood. Makes the perfect mount for a pole, and using some deck screws it'll look something like this. Now we'll add a platform. You'll need a piece of wood that's 15 by 8 by 3/4 of an inch. Center it up. Stain it with whatever color you like and clear coat it. Next, take a trip to your local glass store. You'll need 2 pieces that are 20 inches by 14 inches and 1 piece that's 20 inches by 13 inches. And the thickness of all of these pieces is 3/16 of an inch thick. And when you order these parts, ask them to soften the edges. That way the birds won't be harmed and you won't be harmed while assembling it. We'll start with the 20 by 13 inch part. That's the base. Place the wooden base on top and center it up. Use some masking tape to mark the corners. Now we'll use some washers as spacers when we attach the base to the glass. That way, if water gets between the wood and the glass, it can dry up easily. I have these nylon washers, or you can stack up regular steel washers. You want to end up with about 1/8 of an inch space. Now just line them up so you can easily pull them out later. Regular all-purpose silicone is best for this, and we'll be using this for the whole project. Now line it up and push it down till it touches the washers. Allow 24 hours for the silicone to cure, then remove the washers. These 2 parts will form the seed tray. Measure 4 inches from the end and mark it with tape. This part faces the inside and you'll align it with the tape. And then once you attach it down, you want to make sure that the space on the end is the same. Now align it and squeeze it down. And now you have plenty of time to make sure that the space on the ends is the same. Leave anything that oozes out. This is really easy to clean up after it's dry. These cheap finger clamps are perfect for this. And as always, I'll have everything that I use linked in the description under the video. And while that's drying, we can also attach this piece with this flange pointing out. It will mount flush with the end of the glass, and then again make sure that the spaces on the end are equalized. When you're using silicone, it's kind of like putting a bar of soap between two objects. It can slide and move around on you, but just be patient and make small adjustments as you go. And just make sure that it's flush with the end of the glass. Any silicone that has oozed out is easy to deal with one of these little razor blade scrapers. The blades are cheap and they're easy to swap out. I found these nice heavy-duty stainless steel hinges. They're big and robust and they really pair nicely with this bird feeder. Some of these edges can be a little sharp, so do the same. Take the two remaining pieces of glass and clean them. So with these hinges, the side with the countersunk holes is facing down. And because it's facing down, this part of the hinge protrudes downwards, and so we'll need some little spacers. I'm going to use these 8 pieces of 1/4-inch plywood. These hinges will be mounted on the outside of the glass. In doing that, we need one other spacer, so that we'll be able to hinge the glass at a 60-degree angle once we're finished. You'll need 2 pieces like this that are 3/4 of an inch by 2 inches by 1 1/4 inches. So just place them between the glass, push the glass together, and make sure that the end of the blocks is flush with the end of the glass. So it will be going down like this and pushed up against the block. Plus, you want to keep the hinge centered. We don't want silicone oozing out of these holes, so tape them up. So I'm not going to kid you, silicone can be very messy to work with. When you go to wipe some off your finger, you almost always put it in the same spot that you just wiped your finger on previously. The best thing to use is a magazine flyer. Just flip it open to the first page, and you can wipe your finger many times on that one page. And you can pretty well do it one-handed. And then when that page is full, just flip it over to the next page. At this point, we won't be using the little clamps. Just use your fingers to push down and squeeze the silicone flat. At this point, it's good to use a straight edge or a yardstick to make sure that the edges of the glass are in line with each other. Additionally, you can check to make sure that the hinges aren't too off square. And you can see by using those spacers that the glass doesn't touch and we have a minimal gap. For the next step, flip it over so that the hinges are on the bottom. And now we'll use 4 2x4 spacers so that we have room for the finger clamps. Take it and lay it on its side on the glass. Use the finger clamps to hold it in place. At this point, close the door so that we can get the fit right. Now look along both sides to see if there's a gap. So all you need to do at this point is to slide it and close the gap up. And when we go to silicone it, you may notice that these edges aren't aligned, but don't worry, there's some flexibility and you'll be able to move it before you clamp it. Once you're happy where it is, take the door and open and close it a few times to make sure that everything is aligned perfectly. If you're happy with it, take a small piece of tape and mark its position on both sides. And remember, if any silicone oozes out, you can clean it up later when it's dry. Those finger clamps weren't quite strong enough to hold the flexing part in position, so I ended up using a C-clamp. Of all the steps in this project, this is the step that's probably the most fussy. Once you have everything clamped and in position, give the door another try to make sure everything is still in alignment. Now we'll make a simple latch for the door. So just use a coat hanger and cut about 8 inches off the bottom, and then about 2 inches from the end, bend it right around. This makes it very easy to adjust. Now take it and bend it at 90 degrees right here. And then cut it, leaving a ½ inch. Use a screw and a washer and adjust it until it doesn't quite touch the glass. And for a prop rod, I used some 3/4 inch wood that was 12 inches long. And I used two 5/8 inch number 8 panhead Robertson screws. This just makes it easier when you fill it with seeds and to clean it out. And when you're finished with it, it'll store neatly under the latch. This is a great little camera that I use to get all of my outdoor shots. All you need is 110 and good Wi-Fi. Waterproof, has night vision, shoots in 2.5K, and lots of other cool features. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notifications, and we'll see you next time.